We need to talk about the Padres. In the year 2020, Fernando Tatis Jr. broke out onto the baseball scene with his talent and fun personality, instantly becoming a star. He made a ton of new fans, but also some new haters. Why? Because he apparently broke the unwritten rules of baseball. It all started when he swung 3-0 with the bases loaded in a game the Padres were leading by a lot late, connecting for a grand slam to extend the lead even more. The Rangers were furious, and even the now former Padres manager Jace Tingler condemned what his own player did. Tatis simply didn't care and continued to break the unwritten rules of baseball, going on to flip his bat, watch his home runs, dance all the time, even when rounding third base on home runs, and he's just been looked at as a fun, unwritten rule breaker ever since that moment in Arlington, Texas. The Padres as a whole have since seemed to take on the Tatis persona, and they've all become very flashy to an extent. I'm talking pimping homers, which granted is something everyone does across the league now, but Padres players are never afraid to do that. The swag chain was introduced in 2021, and they're just a really fun team to watch, whether you're a fan of them or not. Tatis alone, because of how he is, has brought in a ton of not only just new Padres fans, but baseball fans. Petco Park is now the place to be during the baseball season, and one can only imagine what that atmosphere is like in potential playoff games. With this all being said, because of recent events, this team deserves some harsh and legit criticism. This has nothing to do with Tatis, or most of the players for that matter, but former Oakland A's manager and the new manager of the team, Bob Melvin, someone who has made the Padres now look like big hypocrites. Don't get me wrong, there are other instances of teams being hypocrites in baseball. In 2020, Trent Grisham of the Padres hit an absolute bomb off of Clayton Kershaw. He stared at it, and by the time he was between third base and home plate, with the help of no crowd being allowed at the ballpark at the time, you could hear many Dodgers players screaming at Grisham from their dugout. After the game, Dodgers manager Dave Roberts then spoke about how he took exception to Grisham watching his home run off of Kershaw, especially because it was off Kershaw, someone who has the respect of everyone in baseball for what he's done in the game with his resume, going on to say that there is a certain respect that you give a guy if you homer against him. I love Kershaw, don't get me wrong, he's one of my favorite pitchers ever, but what Roberts said to defend his pitcher made little sense. Just 1 year prior, the Dodgers were in San Francisco, and Max Muncy hit an absolute bomb off of Giants pitcher Madison Bumgarner. He made sure to watch that one, and after getting yelled at by Mad Bum around the bases, Muncy told him that if he didn't want to watch him watch the ball, he can go in the ocean and get it. The Dodgers not only supported that statement from Muncy, but they went as far as to make shirts out of the quote, which read, "Go get it out of the ocean." That's savage, and I respect it, but to be okay with that but not Grisham admiring a home run off of Kershaw, it doesn't make much sense. Last I checked, Madison Bumgarner has a really good resume as well, so by that logic, should Muncy have respected Bumgarner? It's hypocritical. In the most recent Padres incident, things took a little bit of a turn, because instead of another team getting mad at them breaking some so-called unwritten rule, it was the opposite. The Padres were mad at their opposing side for the same exact thing. In a recent Giants-Padres game in San Francisco, the Giants were obliterating the Padres. The Giants scored 6 runs in the first inning, 4 in the second, and they were rolling. By the bottom of the 6th inning, the Giants were up by 9 runs. Mauricio Dubon came up to the plate and bunted for a single. The Padres were not happy about that. Manager Bob Melvin was irate, yelling at Dubon and at the Giants dugout over his frustration that the Giants would even think to do something like that. First baseman Eric Hosmer wasn't happy as well, telling Dubon himself he thinks he's got to be a little smarter in that situation, that he's been playing professional ball for a good amount of time, obviously if you're at this level, and he's just got to be smarter than that. After Dubon made his way back to the dugout when the inning ended, Gabe Kapler immediately started to talk to him. Right away, we all thought that Kapler agreed with Bob Melvin's point of view and was telling Dubon he shouldn't have done that and should learn from that situation. Turns out, he said the exact opposite. After the game, Kapler went in front of the media and said that he supported Dubon's decision. Watch.
I fully support both of those decisions. Also support the decision that Dubon made to bunt right there. And our goal is not exclusively to win one game in a series, it's to try to win the entire series. Sometimes that means trying to get a little bit deeper into the opposition's pen. And I understand that many teams don't love that strategy. It's not to be disrespectful in any way. It's because we feel just very cool and strategic. It's the best way to try to win a series. When I say cool, I mean like calm. We're not emotional about it. We're not trying to hurt anybody. We just want to score as many runs as possible, force the other pitcher to throw as many pitches as possible. And if other clubs decide that they want to do the same thing to us, we're not going to have any issue with it.
I'm sorry. Contrary to what some of you may think, and I respect your opinion if you disagree, but Gabe Kapler is a genius. I never even thought of it that way. Not only is he having his player bunt because it helps him potentially get more runs that game, but it also helps him in the long run because the opposing pitchers are throwing more pitches now, and that affects more than just that night, but the next game and beyond. Another part of that, the more simple part, is the sheer fact that baseball games don't have a clock. Say you're in a basketball or a football game with a few seconds left. You're blowing the opposing team out, and you decide to shoot a 3 or dunk before the time runs out, or you go for another touchdown instead of kneeling to end the game. That's a terrible move, and one that's definitely Bush League. As far as baseball goes, score up to 100 runs if you can. You never know what can happen. The fact that according to the unwritten rules, one side is supposed to stop competing is flat out ridiculous. Here is more from Gabe Kapler on the matter.
What's the threshold? One team thinks it's 8 runs in the 6th inning. Another team thinks you just keep going after it as long as you're early in the game. But there's no real cutoff point. I don't think that there should be any of that, personally, clearly. But at the same time, I understand that we all have different opinions and vantage points on this, and it's okay. We don't have to see this the same way. Major League Baseball is, for individual players, is a game of survival. Mauricio Dubon is depending on his ability to be successful over a long period of time. He needs to use every tool at his disposal to be successful, to stick at the major league level, to demonstrate his value, to hone his craft. It doesn't make any sense to have one part of the field stop competing and the other part of the field keep competing. I can't think of a reason why that makes sense. Pitcher on the mound is trying to get you out. Batter at the plate stops competing with all of the tools at his disposal. I've never quite understood it. I don't understand it now. And I don't think that the best way to play this game is to take away any of your tools to be successful on a Major League Baseball field.
The San Diego Padres, of all teams, should not be complaining. They have a guy who basically did exactly what Melvin got mad about, and by their logic, even worse. He hit a 3-0 count grand slam with his team already up 7. I know Melvin wasn't the Padres manager at the time, but for guys like himself and Hosmer to pick and choose what's right and wrong just doesn't add up. And honestly, I don't know why Eric Hosmer even cares about this. He should probably start putting the same amount of effort in actually living up to his contract rather than how much he dislikes opposing players breaking unwritten rules. Just saying. Maybe this will escalate to something between these two teams, or maybe not. But the bottom line is that although Bob Melvin can get mad at Dubon and his team for bunting, Gabe Kapler and the Giants don't have to listen to him or the Padres. And nor should they.